5-Minute Habits for Healthy Living. This week's habit is called Simplify Your Life. Hello, this is Dr. Brian Morris, and welcome to 5-Minute Habits for Healthy Living, where you will learn the tools to practice a healthy lifestyle 5 minutes at a time. I've been practicing internal medicine for 20 years. I went to medical school at Johns Hopkins. I trained at Yale, and I previously held a teaching position at Harvard Medical School. I currently practice medicine and hold a teaching appointment at UCLA Medical School here in Los Angeles, where I teach these habits to medical students, house staff, doctors, and of course, to my patients. Before we get to this week's habit, I'd like to remind you that the information contained in this podcast and at 5minutemd.com is intended solely for educational purposes and should not be used to diagnose, treat, or prevent any health condition or illness. This information may not apply to a specific health situation and is not a substitute for medical care by a qualified, licensed, board-certified healthcare professional. Please consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your healthcare regimen. Have you ever gotten to the point where you realized that your life needed to be simplified? It happens to most of us at some point. One day we wake up and we realize that every corner of our home is being used to store all of the stuff that we've accrued over the last 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years. The notebooks, the high school yearbooks, receipts from 1985, your driver's license from 1992. Ouch, that photo looks a little bit dated. Most of us love to keep things. We start to think that we might need something one day down the road. Keeping that one item isn't that big a deal, but when we keep 10, 20, 40, 50, 100 different items, all of a sudden it can become a problem. It isn't much of a problem when there's only 2 or 3 boxes of stuff, but slowly over time, many of us build up huge collections of old things. That t-shirt we loved to wear in college, things like that. We turn around and now we literally have dozens of boxes of stuff filling up our closets and our storage areas. Rooms have stacks of old stuff, most of which we'll never look at again. Why is this a problem? Well, first of all, if we have all of this stuff, then we won't be able to find the truly important things in life. I have spent hours, literally hours, looking for an important book, going through box after box after box, hoping that each one will have that book inside of it. So all of this clutter means that the important things in life are not accessible to us. Also, while these items sit in our attics, in our basements, in our closets, there are people around the world who would love to have these items. That book that you know you're never going to read again, it might be of interest to someone else who really could get something out of it. There are charities all over the world that would love to have that sofa that's sitting in storage, or that book, or those CDs that you never listen to anymore. There's a family out there that would love to have those things. So having all that stuff means that there are people missing out on using these items. Thirdly, I would argue that keeping so many old items wears on us spiritually. I know that sounds a little flaky, but there's a spiritual weight that builds up when we have all of this stuff stored in our attics, in our closets, and in our garages. There is something truly liberating about keeping our lives simple and concise, only keeping items that we need and use. Somehow there's something stressful to the mind, to the soul, to know that we're holding on to all of this past stuff. It's sort of like psychologically holding on to hurt and past grievances. There's a liberating freedom to letting go of the past, to starting each day fresh, unencumbered by the past. Likewise, there is a freedom to simplifying our lives, letting go of what we used to have, letting go of what we don't use or are not likely to ever use again. Try it out. Simplify your life. Spend some time going through your stuff and seeing what you can get rid of. Imagine this. You're walking around for months wearing a 50-pound belt. It wears you down. It tires you out. And then one day you take off that belt. You take off that 50 pounds. How do you think you might feel? You feel incredibly light. You feel like something that you've been carrying around has been released and let go into the world. You free yourself from all that stuff you've been carrying around. George Carlin was one of my favorite comedians when I was a kid. Remember his skit about taking all of your stuff from house to house when we move? It was a really funny skit, and it's worth watching on YouTube if you have a couple of minutes. But there was a lot of truth to that skit. My rule now is if I have not used something in 2 years, then I get rid of it. Except for really rare exceptions, I get rid of everything that I have not used in 2 years. Let's face it, if you haven't used something in 2 years, you're probably not going to use it again. If I'm not likely to use that chair sitting in my garage, then I'd rather have someone else use it. Look to simplify your life. Consider resources like Evernote or Dropbox that can help us to archive old files. Give your old stuff another look and really question whether something is worth keeping. If not, be generous. Find charities that could use those things. Just as we talk about freeing our minds, work to find freedom through simplifying your life. Make it a goal to free yourself and simplify yourself. It will undoubtedly contribute to your well-being and ultimately to your health. Go through your home, go through your office, go through your car, go through your schedule, and get rid of whatever excess baggage you're carrying. This doesn't have to mean that you throw stuff out, by the way. It just means you reassess everything and see whether each item is something that you want to hold on to. Charities tend to be very helpful, and most will do whatever possible to make the donation process as easy as possible. Try it out. Do your best to simplify your life. Let's keep the dialogue going. Let me know what you think of this week's Habit for Healthy Living. Post your comments and your experiences on the 5 Minute MD Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at Brian Morris MD and visit us anytime at 5minutemd.com. Let your friends know about the podcast and make sure that you are subscribed on iTunes. When you subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, you will receive new podcast episodes as soon as they are posted. If you're finding the information on this podcast helpful, you may want to check out these episodes as well. And lastly, if you have a few minutes, stop on by iTunes and leave our podcast a review. Thank you so much for listening, and remember to make today count. I will see you at the next 5.